let's start with a matter which is quite topical and which has been dominating the news cycle for quite a few weeks. The resignation of MP Anthony Smith. You were very, very close to him, Mr. Lovell. How did you find out about this, and did it surprise you?
It did surprise me, and let me say, before we get into it, good morning to all your listeners. And if you allow me to just also say before we get straight into the interview, that I would just like to express my heartfelt condolences to the family of Brother Courtwright Marshall, who has passed. And we just want to pay tribute to the fact that he spent his entire life devoted to making Antigua and Barbuda a better place. May his soul rest in peace.
And you worked with him very closely in tourism.
Indeed. He was the Director of Tourism, Director of Research and Planning at the Ministry of Tourism during the period when I served there, and even for the 5-year period after I left. So certainly at the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember him.
Absolutely.
Yes, getting back to the point. The issue regarding Anthony Smith, well, of course, the party has now sailed past that. But it's important nonetheless for us not to forget that what happened there was something that we believe that the challenge that the members of the constituency have decided to pursue. We think that it is something that should be supported. We believe that what has happened is worthy of some form of judicial determination. You see, I don't know if many people know, but Antigua is unique. There's no other constitution in the Commonwealth Caribbean that has the provision. First of all, it says that you are not allowed to cross the floor. You're not allowed to, as they say, resign your party whip. But if you do, then you must sit as an independent member. Now, no other constitution has that provision. In Belize, it says plainly in their constitution that you cannot cross the floor, period. If you resign from your party, immediately you forfeit your seat. That's it, very clear. A similar provision exists in Guyana and in Trinidad. It is not in the constitution, but it is an act of parliament. And so they have those provisions, but those provisions say if you resign, that's it. In Antigua, there's this middle road that says you cannot resign your party whip or else you must vacate your seat. However, you do not have to vacate your seat if you sit as an independent.
Right.
I have listened to my colleagues on this, and I share the view that having taken the oath as a member of cabinet, that it's very difficult for you to then justify your being independent. But it hasn't been tested, and certainly I am in support of those who are pursuing a legal challenge to have some form of clear judicial determination on this matter. Because in my opinion, it certainly goes against the spirit of the Constitution and the intent of the section. So as far as that matter is concerned, I believe that the party, we are moving on. The whole incident with Anthony Smith having done what he did, the interest in the constituency has heightened. There are persons who have stepped forward and indicated that they would love to be the candidate going forward on behalf of the party. And others have indicated an interest in joining the branch. So in many ways, it has stimulated interest, and it has also highlighted some of the issues which many, condemn about the nature of the politics in Antigua and Barbuda, the high, the transactional nature of the politics, because this was not a conversion based on ideas or ideals.
Or philosophy at all.
Or philosophy. It's nothing of the sort, you know. And we've had persons going over on to the other side in the past, but we've never had a sitting member of parliament who was given a mandate by the constituency. And where, for example, I was speaking to a lady recently from the constituency who said when she voted for Anthony Smith, she was not voting for him to go and be part of the Antigua Labour Party. So I feel there are grounds, moral, political, philosophical, on which we can base some form of challenge, and the fact that constituents have decided to take this fight with the support of the legal team of the United Progressive Party and the party itself, I think we should watch and see what happens. Nobody can predict for sure what the outcome will be, but I believe that most right-thinking people just say this cannot be right.
Yes, yes. Now, if we could go back and talk a little about the transactional nature of the political climate in Antigua and Barbuda, and in particularly in that transaction. How did you find out about that move by Mr. Smith?
Well, I found out, like most other persons, on the Monday. I heard about it, and I was telling everybody it's fake news. Now, the reason why I was convinced that it was fake news, it was because of a conversation that he had with me, where he had told me about the offer, and he told me, Cap, I'm proud of myself. I passed my first big test. I told them no, I refused. So I was...
What was the offer?
Oh, the offer, very clearly, he told me that they had offered him $6 million, not all in cash, but some upfront in cash and the balance in contracts. So effectively, he'd be sitting as a minister of government and reaping in contracts. And when he told me that he'd refused it, I said, my brother, I'm really proud of you. And the last words were, love you, proud of you.
Wow.
So when I heard on Monday, obviously this was something that shocked me. And I told the first 10 or 12 persons who contacted me about it that there's no truth to it. It's fake news.
And Mr. Smith would have also been at General Council the Sunday before, and the small business pull-up on the Saturday.
Indeed, the small business pull-up in Willikies on the Saturday, and the General Council meeting on the Sunday. Yes, he was there. And I indicated, that what transpired there reminded me somewhat of what happened in some of the constituencies in the last election, where, persons would be with you up to a point.
Yeah.
And you're satisfied that insofar as where they say their heart is and where they give their commitment, you take their word for it. But then something happens which alters their entire perception and overnight makes them do things which you didn't expect them to do. And that's the transactional nature of the politics of Antigua and Barbuda. So to a very large extent, a lot of what transpires is not about ideas, is not about philosophy, is not about where we're going to take the country. It has to do with what can I get out of this? And that's something that we need to address because it needs to change. Because it's certainly not in the best interest of the development of this country to have that type of politics. We need a politics of transformation, a politics that looks at where we are and what needs to be done in order to provide for our young people, for our women, our elderly, giving opportunities to persons who wish to pursue various disciplines, studies, professions, employment opportunities. This is really where the country should focus its attention. But we have a situation where many persons, and I dare say Anthony Smith, he unfortunately fell within this trap of allowing inducements to color his perception of what is right and what is wrong.
Yeah. There's some people who are of the view that perhaps Mr. Smith had not been properly screened prior to his being put on the UPP ticket, because the quick the easy way of just disavowing your party and becoming disloyal, this perhaps would not have happened if...
No, I don't buy into that. You can see a man's face, you can't see a man's heart. Even our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was betrayed by Judas after a kiss. So I don't know how you're going to screen somebody and find out what they're likely to do 2 or 3 years down the road. The fact is they caught MP Smith at a time when he was perhaps at his most vulnerable, and they pounced on that. Because,
financially vulnerable.
Because let's remember, this whole issue is really not so much about MP Smith. This is about St. Philip's North. Remember, the government had come out and promised that MP Yearwood would have been in Parliament 3 Thursdays ago. They said, that all the talk that persons, there was a bit of talk about the condition of MP Yearwood's health, and persons were saying he would not be able to attend Parliament. And the Labour Party came out and said he will be in Parliament. Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, they realized he was not going to be in Parliament.
Yeah.
And so it was very important that they could have someone who could bolster their voting strength.
That's right.
Because as it is now, without MP Smith voting on the Labour Party side, they would only have 8 persons. And that would have created an issue in terms of the ability of the Labour Party administration to be confident when they go to Parliament that bills will be passed.
So in a sense, Gaston Brown was very strategic in inducing MP Smith to come over.
It's all about voting strength
Yes.
in Parliament. That's really what it's all about. It's all about voting strength in Parliament. And let us be aware that others had been approached, and this is something that we should be aware of, that they needed one more person to bolster their position, and they were shopping around, and they caught one. But I would say that, they caught one, but I give credit to those who looked at them and said squarely, no, I will not do that.
Yeah. Now, many constituency of All Saints West were clamoring for you to come out of retirement, to throw your hat back in the ring, to vie for the All Saints West constituency where you actually live. Is this a consideration which you have given any thought at all?
I would put it this way. First, I appreciate the sentiments that have been expressed and the confidence that persons seem prepared to place in me. Because of the way in which it has come at me, I've had phone calls from the constituency, from other places in Antigua, from the diaspora. I would say it has been overwhelming. And so I felt as though I had a duty to at least give this thing some very serious thought, having already made certain declarations. And having thought about it, I am of the view that my role is really to support whomever the party selects for that constituency, to give my the weight of my support, place it behind someone who the party may choose, and to continue to play my role, which would be not as someone who's on the field of play actively, but who is in the game, but on the sidelines as coach, as mentor, as cheerleader, as fan. That's my role. So I'm not walking away, but I feel that my earlier statements should stand, and notwithstanding the fact that I appreciate the overwhelming call that has been made, I believe that my time right now would be better served as someone who is supporting rather than being actually out there. But, so that's my position as it stands now.
Okay, let's take the break because somebody else is on the board. Big question to Mr. Lovell. Is he going to run in All Saints West? That's the big question around. You have heard his answer. Welcome back to Observer AM. I'm Jackie Quinn, your host. It is 7:34 in St. John's, Antigua, and over there in our sister island of Codrington, Barbuda. We're talking with former political leader of the United Progressive Party, also former Minister of Finance, former Minister of Tourism, and former MP for the constituency of St. John's City East. And we're touching on quite a plethora of national issues. Let's talk about some of the other national issues, Mr. Lovell. The Prime Minister of this country made a broadside on the judiciary after the last lap murder. What are your thoughts, sir, on his comments and that whole sacrosancy, if there's such a word, of the separation of powers?
Yes, I am very disappointed that a prime minister would try to throw the judiciary under the bus, where the failings clearly are failings of the Labour Party administration. I had a chance to read the very excellent article written by Justin Simon Casey, which appears in today's Observer. I recommend that article to everyone. It was very well done, very thorough, and I would say that he expressed the thoughts that I hold in regard to the Prime Minister's comments. The judges, they are required to follow sentencing guidelines. It's not a case where you just jump up and you sentence someone arbitrarily. There are certain guidelines based on certain factors that the judges will follow. But I think Justin Simon makes a very important point with regard to the importation of firearms into the country.
Yes.
And the fact that everybody seems to know that firearms are coming in, but you don't hear of any initiatives or any special moves or measures being taken in order to stem the flow of illegal firearms. That is a very, very serious issue, as well as the point that he notes that many of the gun crimes that are being committed today are being committed by juveniles, young persons. And there has to be a very deliberate and intentional program aimed at young people to address this issue. And he points to the fact that many of these young persons are sent up to the prison in violation, as you pointed out this morning, of the law, where there is no special or separate facility for young people. And those are issues that need to be addressed. But the Prime Minister sought to scapegoat the judiciary by throwing them under the bus and saying that they're the ones responsible, so that he shifts the responsibility away from the persons who've been elected to run the affairs of this country.
I'm quite surprised that the Bar Association has not come out in condemnation of the Prime Minister. There's been deathly silence from the Bar Association on this. And I know across the region, I have colleagues who are saying to me, what is going on in Antigua and Barbuda? How could a Prime Minister be making such comments about the judiciary?
Well, let's not prejudge it. I still think there's time, and let's see what the Bar Association says.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little about another matter that is quite near and dear to your heart, the Eastern Caribbean Cancer Center, now shuttered, still caught up in negotiations, and cancer patients have had to travel to Colombia and to other places for radiation and other specialized treatments. What are your thoughts on what has happened with the Eastern Caribbean Cancer Center, which was one of the hallmarks of the UPP administration just leaving office in 2014?
Now, I feel very strongly about it, very, very strongly about it, because I know the work that former Prime Minister Baldwin Spencer put into the cancer center, its establishment. And there was a plan which has been completely disregarded and which has fallen by the wayside. Now, the whole issue was, everybody knows that in the Eastern Caribbean, we don't have the critical mass in any one country.
That's right.
To support some of these facilities. And therefore, together with a private sector partner from the Bahamas, Prime Minister Spencer set about, and at the time, Minister John McGinley, set about setting up this cancer center. He had to draw in the other prime ministers. I remember the meetings he held at the time with persons like Prime Minister Kenny Anthony from St. Lucia, the then Prime Minister from St. Kitts, Prime Minister from Dominica, St. Vincent. He brought the OEC as prime ministers on board, and it was agreed. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, there was a memorandum of agreement.
That's right.
Whereby they would send their cancer patients to Antigua. Now, this was an opportunity, some could say, for health tourism. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when persons persons who would have traveled to Antigua, they would have to stay in a hotel. They would have had to utilize our facilities. Family who would be traveling with them would have to utilize the various services in the country. And what we see happening today is, to me, very, very sad. I look at the fact that there are several women right now who are affected. And it seems as though many of the problems we have, men I know are affected by prostate cancer and other forms of cancer, women, breast cancer and other forms of cancer. But what I'm noticing is that a lot of the persons who are traveling overseas are women. Mm-hmm. And it is very hard, especially because many of our households are headed by women. Mm-hmm. And so you have to understand, well, I don't need to tell you. You can tell me. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, it is a very emotionally traumatic period. Psychologically, it can be very disorienting, and socially, it creates adjustments. It creates situations that require serious social adjustments, mm-hmm. where you have to get family members, neighbors, your workplace. Everybody gets involved. So
there's a whole network of psychosocial support that's required for cancer patients.
So it's not just that one person.
That's right.
And when you realize now that we had an opportunity to allow mainly our women to have that psychosocial support network, mm-hmm. working for them so that they could remain in Antigua, get that type of support. Now they have to be traveling to Colombia. You have to find family members who will go with you to Colombia. You have to find money to stay in a hotel. You have to find the other expenses that have to be dealt with whilst you're in Colombia. That could have been Antigua. Mm-hmm. Now, why I feel so strongly about it is because here you had this cancer center, the vision of which was to provide cancer care not just for persons in Antigua, but the entire OECS region. That would have required the Minister of Health, maybe even with representatives from the Tourism Authority, going to the different islands, putting packages together, mm-hmm. and saying, look, if you come to Antigua, mm-hmm. you can, 2 or 3 hotels get together, you do a package. You come, you bring your family members with you, we offer you special rates, this is what we will do for you, and you create a whole product, a package of health care for persons who would be coming from the other island so that they can get the cancer treatment in Antigua. In my opinion, no expense, no effort could have been too great to make sure that you kept that cancer center open. Instead, they allowed it to just fall by the wayside. It locked down. Now you have to be sending persons overseas. No serious efforts were made to market this facility so that persons could be coming from the other islands. I mean, it's just such a shame, and it makes everybody understand, really and truly, this government does not prioritize the health of its people, and especially the women who face the brunt of this problem. Because I think even now, as we speak, of those persons in Colombia, I think there are about 10 persons in Colombia. And if I'm not mistaken, all of them are women.
Yes. Mr. Lovell, I am going to ask if you would be so kind to join us after the news, sir.
Sure.
Great, so we can finish our conversation. Attorney at Law Harold Lovell kindly consented to stay with us. Of course, he is the former political leader of the United Progressive Party, and we're going to continue our conversation. Thank you for your graciousness, sir, in staying with us.
Thank you, Jackie.
Now, there is a matter, sir, that is very near and dear to your heart, and it concerns the U.S. Air Station, or the Pan Am base, which was turned over to the government. The underutilization of this facility has been of some concern to you for 10 years. Can you please speak to this for us?
Yes, Jackie. This issue is, every time I pass the former U.S. Air Station, I get a sinking feeling because the government lacks vision. And where there's no vision, the people will perish. Now, here it is. In 2015, the United States government relinquished its control over this facility. What is this facility? We're talking about 154 acres of land. Most of it already fenced. Water storage capacity, 2.5 million gallons, with its own pumping station, with all the facilities which had been maintained over the years. In terms of electrical power, fully self-sufficient in terms of the supply of electrical power. In terms of rooms, accommodation for 108 persons.
Wow.
In addition to that, you had the admin buildings, you had the maintenance buildings, and the facility as a whole with sports facilities. And this government got that facility in 2015, and almost 10 years later, there is nothing that you can point to say this was a plan. No, they will say they gave it to Social Security, which in my opinion was not only a bad move, it was a disingenuous move. It should never have been done to they advantaged Social Security. Social Security needed cash. The debt that is owed to Social Security by the government, most of that debt is as a result of the 28 years of the previous Labour administration who did not pay anything into the Social Security scheme. And so there was a debt of over $500 million. And one of the first things this administration did when they came into office after they got that facility, they pawned that off on Social Security.
To settle some of the debt.
To settle a part of the debt for
Right.
$83.5 million, or call it $84 million. That should never have been done, because the way that it was done, they robbed Social Security first of the interest revenue that they were supposed to earn on the bond. They were supposed to be getting regular cash payments from the government according to the Memorandum of Understanding with the Social Security scheme, which we did in 2010. So they gave Social Security this facility. In my opinion, Jackie, that facility should be part of a wider plan. Well, you know, our vision was that that's where we would have put the university.
Yes.
Because it is ideally suited for some form of educational institution. At one part of the current facility of 154 acres, you have the Metropolitan University School of Medicine. They're operating where they used to operate what's known as the telemetry site. That's over at the back of the runway that old Burma Road that used to exist. That's where they are. So already they are allowing another university, overseas university, to operate. And nothing is wrong with that per se. The point I'm making, Jackie, is that a facility like this, I already pointed out to you, water, what's become of it? The pumps have been stripped out. Everything is in a state of disrepair. The wires have been ripped out. The grounds are not kept the way they were kept in the previous, or in the Americans were there. Are we saying that we are less than? That we cannot maintain a facility in its pristine condition, keep the buildings up? What are we saying about ourselves? And I'm saying, Jackie, this is a facility that should have been used as part of a wider plan for the development of our young people. You can imagine you have 108 rooms there. This is something could have been a major facility.
107, because one is being used to house the British convicted rapist.
Well, there we are.
Lee Martin Cramp.
So there is no plan. Somebody recently opened a shop there, so you can see a little mini mart. Nothing is wrong with that. But if the idea is to turn it into a center for small businesses, or if that is the plan, then execute a plan. Then you have some students, I think, stay there on an ad hoc basis. You have the convicted rapist, the British man, he's staying there. When they had the problems with the persons, the refugees from Cameroon, they put some of them to stay there. When you have issues with immigration, but there is no plan.
Yes.
And this could have been a center, just like I feel strongly about the cancer center. This could have been something where with a bit of vision, a center of excellence, something connected with the Ministry of Sports or the Ministry of Education. You bring people from overseas, you put down a facility, if it's a swimming facility, if it's tennis, if it's a track facility, make it a center of excellence of some kind. Because you have it there. It's like the biblical story where you give them your talent and you bury it. And 10 years later, nothing has happened except that it has deteriorated. The water supply, we suffer from a problem with periodic drought. We have problems with supplying regular water to our people. You have 2.5 million gallons there. At the time when they left, it was almost full. And now, and that was in a drought. That was in a drought condition. And nobody can tell you what is happening with that, except when you go there, it's overgrown with bush, wires ripped out, everything is gone. This administration has allowed that to happen. And not recognizing, this could have been something that Antigua and Barbuda could be proud of. We could have had a facility bringing people from overseas. You have somewhere for them to stay. I mean, it is like a golden opportunity. How many governments around the world, in the Caribbean, would have been happy to inherit 154 acres of land, buildings already in a state properly maintained, and you take that, and 10 years later, all that you can show is a set of rundown buildings with vines running over the place, the grounds barely kept. It is a shame, and this is where, again, I highlight this because it is symptomatic of this administration. There is no plan. Everything is on an ad hoc basis. Everything is based on what's in it for me. If there's nothing in it for them, they don't pursue it. But things that could be used for the development, and as I say, this is a perfect facility that should have been dedicated to our young people, whether as an educational institution or as a sports center of excellence or something. Our idea was that because of its close proximity to the Liat Hangar, we would have pursued a specialization in aviation education. And that, again, could have been a linkage between this area, the Air Force station, and the Liat Hangar, where we would have focused on the training of persons in all forms of aviation science. Ideas, where are the ideas?
Well, they say where there is no vision, the people perish, and we are perishing with this particular matter. Now that you've talked about aviation, let's talk a little about your thoughts on Liat so far, and particularly the Prime Minister's continued attempts at union busting, bypassing the union and offering to negotiate directly with the workers of Liat, the former workers of Liat. Your thoughts?
No, first of all, the Prime Minister, he's a confusionist. Almost anything he touches, there's confusion that will attend whatever that is. And the Liat situation, as far as the workers are concerned, it is sad to see the way that he is seeking to bypass a properly registered, recognized union in Antigua and Barbuda. You know, this is reminiscent of the old days when the sugar barons refused to negotiate with the Antigua Trades and Labor Union, when you had Stevens and then you had V.C. Bird and Hearst and all these others. When the sugar people, the sugar lords, they wanted to bypass the union, not recognize the union. It happened again when the workers' union, when they were formed, and the then V.C. Bird government did not want to recognize the workers' union and refused to deal in a manner that is consistent with good industrial relations practices, and making sure that the unions are properly recognized and given the respect that is due to them. So here it is, he's going to speak or negotiate directly with workers, trying to pick them off one by one. Yeah. If you read the history of trade unionism, not just in Antigua, but the Caribbean and the world, that is something that men have shed and women have shed blood for, have fought for, the right for to deal collectively, because it is always known that the bargaining relationship between the employer and the employees is an unequal relationship. And the workers only find strength in a combination, when they come together as a union. But in the old days, what employers wanted to do would be to deal directly with individuals because obviously of the inequality in the bargaining power.
That's right.
Now, that is where this Prime Minister is trying to take this country once again backwards to a point where union busting is regarded as something that's ordinary, that's something that's acceptable, and it is not acceptable. And anywhere in the world you go, they will show you that what he is doing is contrary to the best international practices that Antigua and Barbuda has become renowned for in terms of our recognition of unions and the right of persons to form unions, to negotiate through their unions, and to sit down around the table and show respect and to come up with some form of plan going forward. And I'm saying, when I say he's a Confucianist, even the most recent iteration of LIAT 2020. Of course, every Antiguan and Barbudan wants to see LIAT do well. So there's nobody who's going to say they don't want LIAT to do well. But I am of the view that had he had a different posture and if he had a different approach, the real task was to have been able to bring his other colleagues in the Caribbean to the table and on board. And he failed to do so. I mean, there's always a good excuse why something didn't happen. The fact is, he failed to bring his colleagues from the other Caribbean countries to the table. They will always be, because of this or because of that. The fact is, he failed to do so. So he had to go to Nigeria in order to find a partner to do it. Now, we're all hoping that Antiguans will be able to get employment out of this, but I don't think any of us, we haven't seen the cash flow projections, we haven't seen the business plan. It's a different environment. It's not as it used to be, where LIAT had a virtual monopoly in the skies. There are other carriers operating. I remember when I was Minister of Civil Aviation and you had Caribbean Star fighting against LIAT, and Caribbean Star decided to engage in predatory pricing. Mm-hmm. They dropped their prices in order to fight LIAT and drive LIAT out of the market. We don't know what's going to happen, how the other carriers are going to operate. All I can say is we wish them well, but it stems from the fact that the Prime Minister was unable to bring his colleagues from the Caribbean together so that you could have a united approach going forward in order to keep LIAT. What we saw and what we witnessed was that the others, they basically ran away. Yeah. And it has something to do with his inability to pull together because of how he does business.
I saw last week that the Prime Minister of Grenada, Dickon Mitchell, just signed an agreement with Inter-Caribbean, and they just launched last week, Friday, the Spirit of Grenada.
So, you see, this is what I'm saying. It's a different environment.
Yeah.
You have different carriers operating at the moment, and we'll have to see how it works out. We don't know yet, but once Antiguans are going to get employment, and once it's for the benefit of the country, then I think we will all give our support. But you cannot shy away from the fact that the Prime Minister, was unable, he failed to pull together and allow the other Caribbean countries to come forward.
Mm-hmm. Now, if we can just switch gears a little and move into the personal and professional, you are moving on to academia. You have just been appointed as a visiting professor of the University of Toronto. Can you just tell the nation of Antigua and Barbuda some more about this new direction of your professional life?
Well, let's not say new direction necessarily.
Because you were a teacher.
It's a new, not only that, it's a new challenge. It's for one semester. It's the fall semester from September to December. I was invited by the University of Toronto to design a course. You may recall that in May of last year, I was invited to give a lecture there. And coming out of that, we started talks, and out of those talks, we have evolved to a point where they asked me to design a course, which I have done, and to come and teach it for the fall semester. Now, this is something that I'm very excited about. Obviously, it's a new challenge for me, and it is something that at least it is satisfying to know that persons have taken note of my life's work and have decided to ask me to come and impart some of what they think I have to teach. And so this is an opportunity that will start middle of September and will go down to December. So yes, I'll be back, and I just want persons to know that everything will continue from my law practice. It will remain open,
yes,
and I will operate virtually so that it's not as though I'm closing down my office. But as you say, it's a new challenge, it's a new direction, and who knows, who knows.
But you have always been an intellectual. You started out as a teacher at the Antigua Grammar School, and teaching, academia has always been a part of you, even though the political side took precedence.
Well, some people say I'm a political animal because I've been in politics since I was a teenager.
Yes.
But I'm a student of politics, let's put it that way. I am an attorney at law, and I would I'm happy to be able to impart some of what I have gained through my life's experiences over the years, both as an attorney at law and within the political sphere, and to having, to be in a position to impart something.
Can you share the course? What's the name of the course?
Well, it's a course that will be looking at what they refer to as human rights law and the post-colonial condition.
Ah.
And so we'll be looking at, some of the important cases that have come up in the Commonwealth Caribbean in particular, and the way in which the judiciary have operated in helping to expand the rights of marginalized groups, of workers, of political players, generally, the way in which the judiciary has acted, and some of the cases throughout the Caribbean that have been fought. And we look at the dominant cultures that have existed, which came down through colonialism, and the fights that have been fought, or the battles that have been fought in order to change some of the prevailing colonial notions, which we have as part of that colonial legacy. So it's something that, it's new territory.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy that they didn't sort of say to me, this is the course, go and teach it.
Yes.
They gave me the opportunity to
design
actually design the course.
That's right. And so the students who will be taking this course will be law students or political science students?
Combination. You have students from the Caribbean Studies Department, students from the Department of Socio-Legal Studies, as well as law students, and political science students as well. It's one of those courses that it's multidisciplinary. So it will draw from these different disciplines, history, politics, jurisprudence, law, social sciences.
Yeah. Well, this is showing us the many parts of Harold Lovell. And we say congratulations, heartiest congratulations to you on becoming a visiting professor.